If you remember walking into a British corner shop in the 1970s or 80s and seeing those enormous glass jars lined up behind the counter like treasure waiting to be unlocked, you'll know exactly what we're about to explore. This isn't about sweets that vanished. Most of these are still around today, sitting in plastic bags on supermarket shelves. What's gone forever is something far more precious: the ritual itself, the weighing, the waiting, the white paper bags, the sound of boiled sweets cascading into brass Avery scales while you watched the needle settle. That entire world has disappeared, and with it, a piece of British childhood that nearly half of us say we miss more than almost anything else. Today, we're stepping back into that lost world. 10 sweets that were in virtually every corner shop jar. And by number 3, you'll be transported straight back to a time when pocket money was counted in pennies, shopkeepers knew your name, and that white paper bag in your hand meant freedom. Number 10, Rosy Apples. We're starting with one of the most beautiful sweets ever created. Rosy apples were perfect spheres, with a gradient from deep red at the top, fading to yellow at the bottom, just like a real apple with a rosy blush. When light caught those spheres through the glass, they glowed. These were traditional hard-boiled sweets, requiring 15 to 20 minutes of dedicated sucking. The taste was what set them apart. A fresh, tangy apple flavour that was genuinely balanced, a little sweet, a little tart, like biting actual fruit. Parents actually approved when you pointed at the Rosy Apples jar, which was rare enough to be noteworthy. Many remember the debates. Which end do you suck first, the red or the yellow? These were the philosophical questions of the 1970s childhood. Rosy Apples represented a time when simple fruit flavours could compete with chocolate, when an apple-flavoured sweet felt like a genuine treat. They're still available today from manufacturers like Stockley's, but in a pre-packaged bag, they're just sweets. In that glass jar behind the counter, catching the light, they were something else entirely. Number 9, sweet tobacco. Here was a sweet that gave you a thrill of danger just by buying it. Sweet tobacco, also called Spanish gold, looked like actual pipe tobacco. Long shreds of pale brown coconut, heavily coated in dark cocoa powder, tangled in the jar. The texture was thick, moist strands with a slight chew. The cocoa powder gave an initial dry sensation before the coconut oil released underneath, creating a rich, fudge-like mouthfeel. The taste was sweet coconut meeting cocoa, basically a deconstructed Bounty bar. But here's what really defined it: that cocoa coating left dusty brown residue all over your fingers. That was the point. You could pretend you'd been smoking, hold the strands between your fingers like a cigarette. You had visible proof. This was the era when tobacco was normalised everywhere. Fathers smoked pipes in the living room, so mimicking smoking seemed like harmless fun, just playing at being grown up. Looking back, it seems mad. Children's sweets designed to look like tobacco. But that's what makes sweet tobacco powerful as a memory trigger. It represents how far attitudes have shifted. What was playful pretend is now deeply uncomfortable. Number 8, coconut mushrooms. While most sweets were simple spheres or cubes, coconut mushrooms were miniature sculptures, distinctive mushroom shapes with beige-brown caps, covered in desiccated coconut and smooth white fondant stalks. The experience was completely different from hard-boiled sweets. The cap was chewy, almost marshmallow-like. The coconut coating provided contrast, slightly rough and furry against the smooth fondant stalk that tasted of vanilla and condensed milk. Together, the flavours evoked Bounty bars and beach holidays. Here's what many remember most: the decision about how to eat them. Bite the cap off first and save the stalk? Eat them together? Nibble the coconut coating off first. Different children developed different rituals, debating the proper technique in the playground. Unlike rattling hard sweets, coconut mushrooms were soft and yielding, making almost no sound. They felt substantial. One mushroom was a proper treat, not a quick mouthful. The mushroom shape triggered imagination. They were toy-like, playful, inviting interaction rather than passive consumption. Number 7, pineapple cubes. In an era when pineapples were exotic centerpieces, people displayed rather than ate. Pineapple cubes brought tropical sophistication to British corner shops. Bright, sunny yellow cubes, dusted with white sugar crystals, caught light beautifully through jar glass. Made using traditional copper pan methods, they offered complex texture, hard exterior giving way to slightly chewy center. Each cube lasted 10 to 15 minutes of dedicated sucking. The taste was intensely fruity and summery. But here's the crucial thing. For British 70s palates, this was genuinely exotic. Most of us had never tasted actual fresh pineapple. The bright yellow was cheerful and optimistic, a burst of sunshine in sweet form. The sugar dust coating fingers required licking off, a ritual many remember. You'd be in the back of your dad's cortina, fingers dusty with sugar crystals, each finger getting individually sucked clean. What makes pineapple cubes particularly powerful is what they represented: exotic aspirations of 70s Britain, package holidays to Spain just beginning, pineapples as status symbols, tropical escapism during endless drizzle. They represent democratic exoticism, where tropical sophistication costs just pennies. Number 6, bonbons. At first glance, bonbons looked like innocent pink, white-dusted spheres, but they were hiding a secret. These weren't pure boiled sweets. Bonbons offered something different, a dual texture experience, small and round, heavily coated in icing sugar. When you bit through the hard candy shell, that satisfying crack, you discovered the prize, a firm, chewy toffee center. First the crunch as you broke through, then suddenly your mouth was full of soft, buttery toffee. The taste was intense strawberry throughout the shell. But the real magic happened at the center. Flavor contrast as well as texture. Fruity, sweet shell meeting rich, buttery toffee with caramel notes. In the jar, the sugar coating created muffled rattling, softer than hard-boiled sweets. The two-stage eating made them interactive. Loud initial crunch, then quiet chewing. Unlike marathon sweets lasting half an hour, bonbons were consumed relatively quickly. For those now 45 to 70, bonbons represent accessible sophistication. They had complexity, layers, surprise inside. Many remember the debate: crunch through quickly or suck patiently until the shell dissolved naturally. Number 5, cola cubes. Deep red, translucent, dusted with fine icing sugar, cola cubes looked like little ruby jewels in those glass jars. The cube shape, with sharp edges, created striking geometric display. But beauty came with danger. Cola cubes were rock hard with sharp edges, absolutely notorious for cutting mouths, tongues, and the roof of your mouth. This wasn't marketing exaggeration. These sweets drew blood. Invented in the 40s by Pascal, they delivered authentic cola flavor, the taste of actual cola drinks captured in sugar. The flavor had slight acidic tang, mimicking carbonation, intensifying as the sweet dissolved. The texture was brittle, creating loud crunching if you foolishly bit them. But those sharp edges were genuinely treacherous. Many remember the moment of misjudgment. You think it's dissolved enough to risk a gentle bite. You apply pressure. It cracks. A sharp edge slices your gum. Suddenly there's metallic taste of blood mixing with cola sweetness. This danger wasn't a drawback, it was part of the appeal. Cola cubes were exciting, slightly risky sweets. Eating one was a small adventure requiring skill and patience. That sharp edge that might cut your mouth was a small price for feeling adventurous. Number 4, mint imperials. Among the kaleidoscope of coloured jars, one stood apart through pure simplicity. Mint imperials were small, perfectly white spheres, creating an almost cloud-like effect. The pristine colour suggested quality, cleanliness, tradition. They went by several names. Mint imperials were standard, but up north and in Scotland, they were Scotch mints, or affectionately, Granny Suckers. The texture offered something unique, a hard outer shell that crumbled into soft, almost powdery interior. The sweet would crumble rather than crack. The taste was intensely minty, pure peppermint oil, creating a take-your-breath-away sensation, a cooling effect that was both refreshing and powerful. These weren't fun sweets. They were serious sweets with practical purpose, breath-freshening. But here's where mint imperials occupy unique nostalgic territory. They're strongly associated with car journeys. Parents kept them in the glove compartment. Many remember the ritual, bored in the back seat during long motorway drives, perhaps feeling queasy from reading a comic, and Mum would produce a mint imperial. The cooling effect was instant relief. This made them simultaneously boring and comforting. Not exciting like cola cubes. They were dependable, sensible, grown-up. The grown-up mint flavour made children feel sophisticated. Number 3, Aniseed balls. Here we enter controversial territory. Aniseed balls were, and remain, the most polarising sweet in British confectionery history. There was no middle ground. You either loved them with fierce devotion or absolutely hated them with matching intensity. You were a believer or a heretic. They looked mysterious, almost adult in their jar, dark, glossy, reddish-brown spheres that caught light like polished wooden beads. Dating from 1910, they were miniature gobstoppers with multiple sugar layers built around a rapeseed seed centre. These lasted 20 to 30 minutes when properly sucked, providing extraordinary value. The texture journey took you through gradually dissolving layers until you reached the final reward, that crunchy seed centre. But the defining characteristic was the intensely strong aniseed flavour from pure aniseed oil, medicinal, herbal, aromatic. This was not subtle. The taste was aggressive and uncompromising, tasting more like medicine than confectionery. The smell was equally powerful, dominating any mixed bag. When that jar opened, the aniseed smell filled the shop. This made them a dare sweet among children. Could you finish one? Could you keep it in your mouth longest? Boys particularly treated them as tests of endurance and toughness. The glossy, dark appearance and strong taste made them seem adult. Aniseed balls were strongly associated with grandfathers who'd grown up when strong flavours were normal. When your granddad offered you one from his pocket, you knew you were being tested. Could you handle proper sweets? In 2009, The Telegraph ran a poll for Britain's favourite childhood sweet. Aniseed balls won. This caused enormous controversy because half the country couldn't believe anyone actually liked them. Comments exploded with people claiming the vote must have been rigged, but the believers rallied in defence, insisting aniseed balls represented proper sweets from when children's tastes weren't constantly pandered to. In an age of focus-grouped products designed to offend nobody, aniseed balls stand as relics of when sweets could be challenging. Whether you loved or hated them, they demanded a response. Number 2, rhubarb and custards. If any sweet captured British culinary heritage in boiled sugar form, it was rhubarb and custards. The perfectly split, half-and-half colours created one of the most cheerful displays behind counterglass. Vibrant pink meeting sunny yellow in a clean line. These Victorian-era sweets evoked the classic British dessert they were named after, bringing proper pudding flavours into children's pockets. This wasn't abstract fruit flavouring. This was attempting to recreate an actual dish every child knew from school dinners and Sunday lunches. The fact it existed as a sweet felt like getting away with something. The hard-boiled version was a sooky sweet, requiring extended sucking that could last for ages. But the dual flavour experience was sophisticated. Tangy, slightly sour rhubarb met sweet, vanilla-like custard in a mouth-watering blend that tasted comforting rather than aggressive. When properly sucked, the flavours merged in your mouth, creating that pudding taste. Some versions let you taste them separately by carefully rotating the sweet, trying to isolate pink from yellow. This created technique debates. Do you try keeping flavours separate as long as possible, or deliberately merge them immediately? The visual was striking. Those jars of pink and yellow spheres created sunny, optimistic display, suggesting summer days and Sunday dinners. The cheerful colours evoked bright, hopeful 70s aesthetic. The sweet-tart balance made them genuinely Moorish. One was never enough. You'd finish one and immediately want another because the flavour was so satisfying, so reminiscent of proper pudding. The nostalgic power is profound. Rhubarb and custards strongly evoke memories of Sunday dinners when families sat together. School dinners where rhubarb and custard pudding was actually served, usually lukewarm with suspicious stringy bits, but you ate it anyway. There was something properly British about them. Rhubarb and custard isn't French or American. It's uniquely British, born from making the best of what grows in our climate. Comfort food that transcended class boundaries. The debate about eating technique reflects something about British character. We take small pleasures seriously. We develop elaborate philosophies about trivial things. This isn't frivolous. It's about finding meaning in small rituals. Number 1. Pear Drops. We've reached the king of jar sweets, the absolute icon of British corner shop confectionery. If you close your eyes and imagine a traditional sweet jar, chances are you're seeing pear drops. The dual-toned teardrops, half sunshine yellow and half candy pink, created one of the most visually arresting displays in any sweet shop. Victorian in origin, attributed to Edward Sharp of York in the late 1800s, these were rock-hard boiled sweets, requiring 15 to 20 minutes of patient sucking. The distinctive sugar dusting made them shimmer through the glass, creating an almost magical effect visible from across the shop. But what made Pear Drops truly unforgettable was that intensely artificial pear flavour, isoamyl acetate and ethyl acetate esters, the same compounds that create banana flavouring, giving an unexpectedly tropical undertone. The flavour was aggressive, uncompromising, chemical in the best possible way. Roald Dahl described them as having an exciting and dangerous flavour, capturing their almost confrontational intensity perfectly. The smell was penetrating and unmistakable. Sweet, fruity, with an acetone-like quality reminiscent of nail polish remover that filled corner shops. When that jar opened, everyone knew. The Pear Drop smell announced your purchase to everyone within 20 feet. The texture journey was pure alchemy. Beginning glassy hard, they gradually dissolved. But unlike most boiled sweets, Pear Drops developed increasingly sharp edges as they dissolved. These edges could genuinely cut your mouth. You had to remain vigilant, rotating the sweet with your tongue, respecting its potential for injury. In jars, they created a hard, rattling, clinking symphony when disturbed, like tiny church bells made of sugar. When they cascaded into the brass scales, each one clinked against the metal, creating satisfying percussion. For those now aged 45 to 70, Pear Drops represent the first grown-up sweet. Not chocolate for children, not jelly sweets, which were childish, but proper boiled sweets requiring patience and endurance. The intensity of flavour made a statement. Eating, one announced you wanted full-strength, no-compromise sweetness. They were a power move in the playground sweet hierarchy. The danger element was real. Many have childhood memories of letting it dissolve too far without paying attention, and suddenly there was sharp pain and metallic taste of blood mixing with artificial pear. You'd learned respect for the sweet the hard way. What makes Pear Drops our number one is how they embody everything about the corner shop jar: sweet experience, the visual beauty through glass, the sensory assault of smell, the texture journey requiring patience, the intensity demanding respect, the potential for injury. They represented democracy and aspiration simultaneously. Anyone could afford them with pocket money, but eating one properly required skill, patience, sophistication. They were the sweet that made you feel grown up, while still being fundamentally childish, which is exactly what you needed when you were 9 years old with sixpence in your pocket and your whole future ahead of you. The ritual we lost. You can still buy every single sweet we've discussed, but that's not what we've lost. What vanished was the ritual. The glass jars behind the counter, the cascade of sweets into the Avery scales, that sound, unique to each sweet. The shopkeeper adding or removing individual sweets to hit exact weight, the white paper bag folded, no tape. Coins exchanged. It wasn't just a transaction, it was your first experience of economic sovereignty. That paper bag was proof of your autonomy. Between 1970 and 2010, 60% of Britain's corner shops vanished. When Woolworths closed in 2009, it was the symbolic death of an entire culture. 46% of adults who grew up in the 70s and 80s say trips to corner shops for penny sweets are among their most missed childhood experiences. We're not mourning sweets, we're mourning autonomy, walking alone with coins in your pocket. Sensory richness, smells and sounds that will never exist again. Community, the shopkeeper who knew your name. Simplicity, before childhood required constant supervision. We can't recreate it. The original required innocence, not knowing this world would vanish. What remains are the taste memories. Aniseed balls is intensity, Pear Drops is chemical assault, sugar dust on fingers, the jingle of doorbells. Those glass jars represented a world where childhood meant freedom, where pleasure cost pennies and tasted of artificial pear flavouring. What was your corner shop called? What sweet did you always choose? Share your memories in the comments, because soon there'll be nobody left who remembers when sweets came in jars and childhood tasted of freedom.